Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing a book review on We Are Only Ghosts by Jeffrey L. Richards. We Are Only Ghosts by Jeffrey L. Richards follows the story of Charles Ward, a gay Jewish man who survived the Holocaust when he was a teenager. Working at a sophisticated cafe in 1968, Charles is shocked when a man enters the cafe, a man Charles never expected to see again. Bertold Worden was an officer at Auschwitz. Charles and Bertold had a sordid, abusive relationship until the end of the war. Charles is faced with an identity crisis and must come to terms with his past and his quest for revenge. Whew, you guys, this book was good. It's not an easy read, though. Let me begin there. This book will not be for everybody. Like heavy trigger warnings. This book deals a lot with abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse, rape to some degree. Yeah, this book is very, very heavy with the topics that it's exploring, the themes and messages that it's exploring. So yeah, this is definitely a book you need to be prepared to head into, and you need to kind of know what you're kind of getting into. So yeah, this is not a very easy book by any means. There's many instances that verge into territory that's just very highly disturbing and upsetting and just even verging into disgusting. Now, if you're worried this book is going to somehow turn into hot Nazi porn, that is not the case. Seriously, hot Nazi porn, I think, is like a trope in of itself at this point. I've seen and I've read other books and even watched like movies and television that feature like a hot Nazi character and they're sympathetic and they get a redemption story. So yeah, if you're worried this book is going into that territory, it's not. The Nazi character in this story, yes, he's attractive and good looking, but it's still all despicable and disgusting. You know, he's not sympathetic and he doesn't get a redemption story. So yeah, that may be a slight bit of a spoiler there, but once again, I think if you need to be warned about that sort of thing, you know, I think it's good to know that this is not a redemption story for the hot Nazi. What I enjoyed about this book is the fact that its characters and its story are very complex and very human and very flawed. This book just really gets deep into human nature, you know, the good and the bad. This is a really harrowing and tragic story of a young Jewish boy who, when he was a teenager, his family was sent to the Auschwitz concentration camp, and he spends a couple weeks at the camp, and all of a sudden a Nazi officer approaches him, takes him back to his home where he can essentially do like slave labor in his household, and then kind of following that, it turns into this Nazi officer also using this young man as like a sex plaything. So that is where you get a lot of that stuff with the abusive emotional, psychological relationship that happens between this Nazi officer and this young teenage boy. The overall narrative structure in this book, I really liked. I liked how this book was divided up because it's told in kind of two dueling timelines. The larger framework of the novel takes place in New York City in 1968, where we're following Charles, who is now like 42 years old, and walking into his life, because now he's working at like a really nice swanky cafe in New York City. Just walking into the cafe one day is that former Nazi officer, Bertold Worden. And of course, this just sparks all sorts of craziness in Charles's head, like, dear God, I never expected to see this guy again. How do I deal with this? What do I do? Should I approach him? Should I turn him in? So you have that larger framework, and then kind of in between all of that, the narrative actually kind of works backwards with Charles's flashbacks. The 1968 stuff is very linear. It's very linear. Like I said, the flashbacks move backwards, starting with Charles's time once the war ends and he's away from Bertold Verdon. And then we move into another flashback sequence that then does explore the relationship with Bertold and Charles once he's taken out of Auschwitz and forced to do manual labor at Bertold's home. And then we get another flashback sequence that takes place before Charles's time at Auschwitz, where he's with his family at at a ghetto and whatnot. So I liked I really enjoyed the deliberate narrative structure of this book. Once again, 1968 is done linear. Everything else, the flashbacks, done backwards. I like that really deliberate structure because what this book is ultimately about, it's about Charles Ward, once again, this young Jewish gay man. It's his identity crisis. This whole story is his identity crisis and him trying to reconcile his past and his present and who it is he wants to be in the future. And I love that. I loved everything about this book with that exploration of his character. This is definitely a deep character exploration. This man going through an identity crisis. Because yeah, when he was a teenage boy and all this was happening, all this stuff with the Holocaust were things that were outside of his control, things that he could not control whatsoever. And he was practically erased. His identity was erased. Even his own name was erased by Bertold Verdon. Because Charles, that is not his real name. He has another name that we kind of get told as the flashbacks keep working backwards. So I liked the narrative structure of the flashbacks as we're moving backwards in time, because then the true Charles, who Charles really is, we get those layers peeled back and back and back until we finally are introduced to the real Charles, the Charles that he should have been all along before World War II happened. And I just really found Charles to be a compelling lead to this narrative. Not only is he a young Jewish gay man, but he's just so tragically flawed and tragically human. He's not perfect. He's kind of impulsive about certain things, and those impulses get him into a lot of trouble, and there's some serious ramifications that happen from his impulses at one point, both in the past and in the present. He was just so interesting and likable and believable and just very natural. And yeah, just the narrative of this story is just handled in just such a mature way that even when Charles is doing some things that you don't agree with and he's making some decisions that perhaps he shouldn't be making, everything that he is doing, you totally understand his motives at any given time. Because yeah, once again, as the flashbacks occur and you're getting those layers peeled back, you understand that emotional, psychological place he is coming from, because his body was used as a certain type of sexual warfare at times. And you guys, I genuinely thought this book, I genuinely thought I was going to end this book and just be upset and sad. Because for the life of me, I was like, I just cannot see this book ending in any sort of happy place, because for the longest time it was not looking good. But yeah, I'm really glad that Jeffrey L. Richards proved me wrong with that, because I think the ending of this book, I think there's an emotional catharsis to it for both you, the reader, and definitely for Charles as a character, as he comes into his true identity, who he should have been this entire time. And yeah, I think that is kind of a bit of a spoiler, me saying that, that this ending does have a very kind of oddly happy, satisfying conclusion, but I think that's kind of important to note in a review like this, because of the nature of this book, how disturbing and disgusting some of the things going on in this book, that I think it's important to know that there is something emotionally satisfying as you conclude this book, that it's not 100% doom and gloom. So overall, I really highly enjoyed this book. If you're someone who likes reading World War II historical fiction, you're probably really going to enjoy this. And yeah, pick this book up too if you're just looking for a story that is really complex and flawed, and yet exploring one man's identity crisis as he's trying to reconcile past, present, and future, because it makes for some really striking reading material. So you guys, that is it for my thoughts and feelings on We Are Only Ghosts by Jeffrey L. Richards. In the comments below, have you guys read this book? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Just let me know your thoughts down below. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.